I've been doing front-end development exclusively for about 10 years now. Programming for about 15. Got my start in WordPress and PHP, and then eventually got roped into open source big time. So over the years, really been pouring more and more time into open source, trying to open source as much as I can, and tackling the more difficult problems as time goes on. About 8-9 years ago, I started a company with some friends called Nozzle. That is, it's search analytics for like marketers and SEO people. But in a nutshell, we basically reverse engineer Google's search rankings. Like everything that comes up on that search page, we just like pull it out, stick it into a database. So we're just creating tons of data every day, and then trying to visualize it. So building a SaaS product around that, you can kind of start to see why some of my open source libraries kind of popped into existence. Tables, charts, querying, and now a router. So yeah, there's lots of fun challenges that came up from that, and it just keeps sucking me in further. So got a healthy startup and a lot of healthy open source tools, and things are going great.
Yeah, it's really cool how like as you built out Nozzle, you open source like seemingly every single part of the front end build pipeline and libraries. Typically that's a lot more work than not doing that. So why did you approach it in that way instead of just building out Nozzle with only internal stuff?
So we've been really lean from the beginning. In fact, the most employees we've ever had on the front end team, including myself, is two. So
Wow.
for better or worse, I've taken on a lot of responsibility and worn a lot of hats. And I have found that one of the only reasons I've been able to keep up with the demand on the product is because I've taken the most crucial, performance driven parts of our application, the critical pieces, and pushed them out to the edge of the community. So all of our querying, all of our tables, as much as I can, I push out into this open source layer. And in a way, I kind of have a bunch of people working for Nozzle, finding the bugs, making it better, and just overall helping me have really stable tools at the core of our product. So that's part of the reasons why I do like to open source it. Second of all, I think that just kind of the nature of a lot of front end technology is just kind of open in general. It's really difficult to hide front end code behind intellectual property. And also there's not a super good alignment of incentives there anyway. So if you can open source it, I think it's a good choice. And probably the third reason is that I found that when I started designing and developing APIs for open source consumption, it improved the overall quality of my code. So honestly, even when I'm developing something new inside of Nozzle that's kind of a fairly large piece, I will approach it as if it could someday be open sourced. And that just helps with a lot of things. API design and documentation, making sure it has great TypeScript support. If you approach problems with that mindset, it definitely changes the way that you structure even things that are internal or private.
That's really fascinating. It seems like there would be a few things that fall out of that. I mean, the very clear benefits, as you said, is like better documentation, and you get like all these extra eyes on the code base. But you also have people who want functionality and features that your product doesn't necessarily have a need for. So how do you sort of balance like what are the internal needs for Nozzle versus like what the community wants out of a particular solution?
I think the best answer I have to that is just inversion of control. If somebody is asking me for a feature that they can't implement themselves or wrap up into, some abstraction or a plugin or whatever they want, I think that's a clear sign that the API needs some better points of inversion. So, just maybe a couple years ago, I had my React table library, but it was a really coupled to the DOM, coupled to the markup. And I saw that people were requesting a lot of features around markup and can we move things where we want and can we rip this out and put our own component in, and it was going to take a lot of time for me to add those features. And yes, I didn't need a lot of those things. But I think that was an indicator that we just had some bad abstractions. And once we took the table library, React table, and made it a headless library, where, we're just going to supply the logic and the state management and, the non-opinionated Markov things about it, all of those issues and all of those requests kind of melted away. And we structured it so that it had a lot of inversion of control around the core features. So now you have people like Kevin Vandy who have built entire table components and table libraries around the core, use table hooks, and that's the power of the right points of abstraction. So I don't have to worry about any of that stuff now. If somebody wants a feature, they can build it themselves. And if they suggest, and I'm like, oh, that'd be good for Nozzle too. We'll work on it together, So I think it's just, part of it is API design and part of it is just saying no. Hey, that's a great idea. And I will support you as much as I can by providing the right API options and abstractions and points where you can kind of hook into the library. But beyond that, if it doesn't align with Nozzle, I don't want to have to just say, no, it's impossible. Mostly it's like, hey, no, I can't do that, but it's possible if you want to put in the work. So that is the balance. And at least it has been for me. And it's working out great so far.
Awesome.